This is Galila International Seminary course, Christian Psychology, Part 2. This Part 2 basically have key most important issues that has to be discussed. For example, psychological term used for mind in New Testament, the psychology of learning and retention. Under this, the formation of habits and study, learning in general, the issue of memory, that means the impression, the retention, the recall and the recognition. And the last, most important one is the psychology of our spiritual life, what seems like. The psychology of sin and the corruption in our nature, the psychology of redemption or improvement, the spirit personality in believer, and the cure or the treatment. This is the content that we discussed under this chapter 2 or part 2. The first one is the psychological term used for the mind in New Testament, basically more focusing on key issues. There are 7 terms for the mind in New Testament. 7 key. The first and the most important one is the gnome, or called the spirit. Occurs 8 times in New Testament, variously translated in Acts, for example, 20-3, proposed to return to Corinthians 1:10, and Philippians 1:4. For example, in Philippians 1:4, without the mind would I do nothing, says. Therefore, this gnome is basically more focusing on, it is the mind formulating purpose or judgment. Here, the idea is of opinion formulated from mature reflection. Mature reflections. The second one is the dinonia, occurs 13 times in New Testament, variously translated understanding. 3 times considering as imagination, once in Lucas 1:51, and the rest times in mind, used a rational mind itself. The faculty of knowing or understanding as comprising all of the mind ability or knowing faculty. This is key, and again, it is more reflected in Matthew 22:37. Thus shall love the Lord thy God with all their heart, with all the soul, and with all the mind. Heart equal all your emotion faculty, soul, all the vowels faculty, and the mind with all your mental faculty. And this is again more reflected in Lucas 10:27, relation to the strengths, the desire of the flesh and the mind. There are a lot of evidence that discuss the issues in relation to this dinonia. And under this, psychology of sinner downward progression in text, Ephesians 4:17-39, walk in the vicinity of pride of the mind full of folly, having understanding of darkened, alienated or isolation from the life of God through ignorance, because of blindness of their hearts, and it says, being past feeling, ceased to feel, given themselves over all luxury or extravagance, and with greediness or hunger, and the like. Therefore, this is key. The third most important word or term is the enoi, occurs 2 times in New Testament, basically referring it is not the mind itself as much as one of the faculty of the mind, it says. It carries the idea of inner design, motive of the heart, and a part of the mind which influence the decision and motive choice. Certainly one of the most mysterious in the operation of mind and why a person choice as he does. That is the key. The fourth one is the neomia, is only 6 times in the New Testament. 5 of them are written in 2 Corinthians and 1 in Philippians. Paulo is the only New Testament writer who used it well, but the mind were blinded, so uneven. That is written under 2 Corinthians 3:40. It has the idea of thinking faculty, thoughts as we think them. That is neon. And here is the secret of meaning of word. When you say neonia, is the secret of meaning of the word neomia for mind. Our thinking life needs gardening. It is easy to see in the secret imagination of throughout life, and unguarded movement. Here, Satan has access to mind, suggests rebellious thoughts, and sanctioned weapon want to do. That is key. And the fifth one is the pronoun is only Roman 8 does it occur, and that only 4 times through the root word from which it is taken, used by Paul a number of times. Let this mind be in you which was in Christ. So means take care and the thoughts for something. It seems our idea of minding something comes from and to take care. 4 times again, 3 times in carnal mind in Romans 8 and 6. This is basically reflected in different parts of biblical chapters. And the other one is the nous, or simply literally defined as ability, the most common word for mind in New Testament, occurring 24 times. It has the idea of mind itself as a rationality. The mind compressing a like faculty of perceiving and understanding, and those of following, judging, or determining. Meaning that it is intellective faculty, understanding, reason as a capacity of spiritual truth, higher power of mind, the power of considering and judging seriously, calmly, and impartially. And that's the thing. It also uses a particular mode of thinking and judging, as indicated or written in Romans 45. The other one is psych. This basically psychologists use this word. The secular psychology use this word. Even they start psychology come from Greek word, the psyche, referring to the mind. It's referring to the soul. It's referring to the spirit. Therefore, one most important issues it has in mind in soulish life, so provoke their soul against their birth and the like. Other psychological term than we mentioned so far earlier, the first and the most important other psychological term used in the Bible is the cardia. It's evident that we see it is usage that it is not the physical health or organ that is meant. That is key, most important. The essential ego of self or soul of man is clearly indicated. It is used many times. The psyche used many times instead of nous or psyche to show the emotional character of the soul intended of the mental. Some Christian psychologists have tried to prove that the heart is the organ of the soul as the brain is the organ of the mind. But it has always seemed too literal and inferior to draw. And there are evidence that basically refers. For example, to understand with the heart, read Matthew 84. Forgive with the heart, Matthew 80:35. Love with all the heart, Matthew 22:37. Say the heart in the heart, Matthew 24:48. And other already mentioned in the PowerPoint, and you can read that one. The second word is term biblically is the reigns. This only once in New Testament Revelation 2:23. All the church shall know that I am he that searched the rein and the heart, and I will give you according to your work. It occurs many times in the Old Testament, again in Matthew 26:2. Prove me, try my rein and my heart. That is. The third word is the belly, referring to translated belly or captivity or womb. The idea of soulish part rather than the external and rather than the inner and inner being. For example, in John 7:38, out of his inner parts shall flow the river of the living water. And again, Proverbs 26 refers to verse 22, the word of the tabernacle are a wound and they go down into the innermost part of the belly. And there are another psychological terms, basically like that of the new man, the old man, the outward man, the inner man, the flesh, the carnal, the body man, and the spirits already. Other key, most important psychological terms. And the fourth, large part of psychology of the New Testament. Psychology of learning irritation, key is issues The first part was the theoretical psychology. The second part was more psychological, applied psychology. In this second division especially, we're going to see about Christian experience or our spiritual life in applied psychology is one most important. And one issue that has to be discussed under this portion is the formation of habit or state. First, a word about habit in general. Psychology has worked out certain principles to determine the why of habits. This is basically focusing on two qualities of the nervous system, for example, the modifiability, subject to change, and the retentivity, character of holding that change. That is key under these issues. William James is the known psychologist, a great psychologist, enumerated 4 laws of habit formation, is still copied today by every psychologist. What are those 4 habit formation? The first one is begin a new habit with strong and decided a start as possible. The second, according to William James, never allow an exception to occur until the habit is well formed, like fixed period of stay. The third, seize the first possible chance to put the new resolution into an action. And the fourth and the last, according to William James, in relation to law of habits formation, is that keep yourself young by a little free practice outside of habit every day. Meaning that there is no minimizing effect of good habits of studying and learning. Have the following few advantages. One, steady habit make acquisition of knowledge. Second, the mind is never as richly furnished as it might be. The third one is good steady habit will finally lead to study. The fourth one is the richest reward of all, outside the God approbation, when he said, study to show yourself approved unto the God, and a workman that needs not to be ashamed is a rich scholarship, especially in this field of biblical research. That is key. The other issue is learning in general. Learning is a relatively permanent change that exists as a result of experience, as a result of practice. Others have used the idea of blank paper and a newly receiving record for others. That is key, but different psychology define this issue of learning in different ways. And the learning can be associated with that of memory. For example, memory is stored with learning in a very systematized manner. And our study should be, for example, looked upon the capital investment. God has called us out into his service. Our equipment shall be twofold. The one is the mental, the other one is the development in mind by systematic study, and the learning is as important to our future ministry as spiritual development under the means of grace. This is key. In fact, spirituality will follow learning. If we'll ascend into the finding learning, the whole of our treatment of learning and retention or psychology of learning is warmed up. The issue of forgetting is again key. Forgetting is a memory slip or losing it is stored, at least consciously memory. In fact, memory is a place where information is stored. That memory can be classified in different parts. Short-term memory, long-term memory, sensory memory, and others. But each category of memory can have different function. For example, the short-term memory is sometimes called the active memory, frequently used in our daily basis and activities. But the capacity of holding information when compared with that of the large memory is something very small, but it is very working and functional memories. The acquisition of knowledge, the issue of perception, this is from Galila International Seminary course, Christian Psychology. And the acquisition of knowledge, there are 3 elements. The acquisition of knowledge has 3 elements: the perception, the conception, and the appreciation. When you say perception, it's a process of meaning making, the way we interpret things. Or perception is an awareness with interpretation. All learning is perception, the mind evaluating as it is aware of the report of the sense. meaning that the role of sense organ in having a relation with the environment using different stimulus is key. The appreciation has to do with my own particular and peculiar mental interpretation of what I have perceived in relation to myself. For example, conception is the reasoning upon it, and the attention is key. It is awareness or consciousness focusing upon one specific detail. Meaning attention is a very fundamental concept, especially in holding information. It is the gateway of learning. It's the process by which clarify sensation. Sensation is a process of gathering information from the environment, but perception is a meaning making. That is key. And there are three forms of attention. One is the passive attention. The second is active attention. The third one is second passive attention. The first passive attention there are stimulation which come to us in compulsion forcing themselves or our attention, such as loud noise, for example, brilliant light, the swift moving object, etc. It momentarily blinds us to all other stimuli. The passive, meaning that it's not an active. Active attention, this is true selection attention. The holding of information forcibly to attend a certain things. This involves effort and is the first fruit of state, giving concentration. Second passive attention is when active attention passes over into passive. Most of all learning studying is at first active attention and only becomes secondary passive attention after there is a mastery of mind focusing ability and an observing interest to develop the subject. That is key and the most important one. And this attention have three most important laws. The first one, we are always conscious of something at every working moment. This is spontaneous attention. The second one is attention is constantly shifting because of different reasons. For example, the longest concentration of attention on record is 24 seconds. Through most of the time it is but 3 to 5 seconds. The attention wave rise and fall. We cannot hold it for but few seconds on any one thing. The third most important law of attention is put a dot on a piece of paper and hold it as far away as possible. Both his eyes and his mind will continually wander off or walk. One most general thoughts, this fluctuation principle of attention, and it carries with it 2 degrees of consciousness. There are receiving and sending into brain's secondary report beside the focal one. The problem of attention or cultivating attention, what the problem, what the challenge. Meaning, all we can do is suggest method of focusing attention. The acquiring of art of concentration is up to you. But when it comes with Christian psychology, the most common Old Testament word means to pick up the ear, to carefully hearken, give heed and mark. Attend to know everything. Here is the attention is mental self-stimulation. In general, attention, mental self-stimulation, meditation, and singleness of God. That is key and the most important. The problem of attention is primarily the problem of interest. That which is interesting to us will absorb our attention, and working together will cause us to progress. And there are another law of interest when you say, meaning that we have said that problem of attention is primarily the problem of interest, and these interests have laws. For example, take the line of native or natural interest to you, we are different. Meaning will add interest. Uncertainty or doubt or expectancy will increase interest. A lot like the last division is this. Curiosity will increase interest again. This answer the natural attribute of the human mind to acquire into the way and what of things. Let the emotion may sway or power to increase interest. This is most important. Another way, it is an strategy to increase the interest so that interest cannot be a problem of attention. If you use the strategy of increasing interest, the problem of attention is not may relate or depend on the interest. That is key and most important. A goal or reward stimulates interest sometimes. Goal setting by itself. Getting reward is one ways. There is one more corresponding to another of the three kinds of attention. Persistent will argument interest to hold attention, studies work. Real mental effort is involved. Most folk are intellectually lazy. They would rather do physical work than to think. They can tell what you believe, but not why. Their knowledge of the world is content in few familiar Bible story. Finally, learned from 20 years of Sunday school attendance. Amazing. To the conclusion, we have taken so much time with attention because we leave it to be the secret or key to all learning, memory, and reasoning. And other key, most important, the issue of memory is key, meaning that memory is a place where information is stored. As more than one psychologist intimated, there are no poor memory, only poor learner. We all have good memory in something, those things which impress us forcefully or emotionally. I believe that, like all other mental faculty, memory is improved with culture and use. In fact, there are different strategies in which we improve our memory. We'll discuss later on. But there are four parts of memory: the impression, the retention, the recall, the recollection or recognition is key. And when you say impression, it has occupied our mind in the discussion of attention and interest. Impression or perception is memory of acquisition, storage of memory for later use. Therefore, the issue of memory is key, and interest and attention is key, most important strategy to use our memory properly. And there are division in retention or holding. The first one is all impression are through sense organ. The role of the five sense organ play significant role for impression. For example, we must see using our naked eye, we hear with our ear, we smell and taste to receive impression from someone, from the environment. The first law impression is go slowly, especially at the first. The first impression is key. To develop first impression, you should go slowly. That's the strategy. Therefore, law number one is go slowly, deliberately, and definitely. The second law is close to this law is the law of careful observation. If you observe well, you understand what's going on. If you observe well, you can interpret and make a kind of meaning and draw a conclusion about the issues. The third law is, I would mention, is a reality, not an edge to impression. Be selective in the amount and the kinds of impression you wish to retain. Be selective. Be identify the issues first. The fourth one is the impression is the issue of repetition. This follows the physiological law, the tendency of the nervous current to pass over cut groove or connection in some place. To repeat 2 times strengthens the impression. That's the key strategy. 8 times will do it better. Psychologists have worked out fairly accurate table of forgetting. Forgetting means loss of information that we have already stored in our memory. Therefore, if you have to recite a poem, for example, a month from today, 30 repetition needed to learn it or to hold it. Is it best to do them all today and spread them out? Remember, the largest portion is forgotten is the first day. So, repeat point 5 times the first day. Do the same next day, then 2 times a day for a few more days. That's strategy. In general, the following are key causes of forgetting. As we said, forgetting is a loss of information due to different factors. And the following are the possible cause why forgetting happens. Once you accumulate it, once you already stored in memory, how forgetting can happen. 1, if the immediate, interpolated, or inserted material is similar to the original. 2nd, if psychological activity is intense during the interim or short term. 3rd, if the interpolated or inserted material is introduced immediately after the original. The 4th, if the original material is ill-learned, not captured well. If the original material is nonsense or unfamiliar. Therefore, these 5 most important factors, basically primary cause for forgetting. If you not well inserted, if you not captured well, if you not well learned, and if the oral material seems nonsense and unfamiliar, forgetting will happen. So frequently return to what you have learned, so memory is already refreshed. Benefit of Bible reading over familiar position is key. Along with this, the loss of overlearning is another one. Overlearning. And the 6th law of impression is against association, relating. This is a common law that whatever has been perceived in connection with some object of perception through afterward. The other one is retention. This is the second key most important, next to impression, is retention. That recollection which now flood the mind with familiar skin, thoughts, and memories. It seems actual mechanism of retention, as in all thought process, escape and maybe always be elude the searcher. It is well to keep in mind in this consideration of retention. This is Galila International Seminary for course Christian Psychology. And there are 3 most important causes of forgetting. One is poor learning or weak impression. The second one is decay through the passage of time. What you have already saved should be used here and there. The third key most important is the issue of interference caused by retroactive or backdated reserve, concussion, and repression or domination. Due to these 3 most important factors, forgetting will happen. Here, the need of reading and rereading Word of God. All the familiar passage we think we know by repetition. So, with so much of our learning, a little care here would richly repay and retain knowledge like learning of language. That is one most important. And there are again 4 most important solutions to forgetting. If forgetting happens due to different factors, if forgetting happens due to interference or poor learning, or nonsense or no meaning original documents or materials, it can be managed in 3 or 4 most important strategies. One most important strategy or solution for forgetting is be sure you have concentrated attention by aroused or stimulated interest, meaning that the issue of focusing, the issue of attention, the issue of concentration is key, so that forgetting can be at least minimized, the problem of forgetting can be minimized. Second, be sure the impression is cut deeply enough to be lasting. And the third one, make actual frequent use of what you wish to remember. Make kinds of associations like that. Try to understand rather than learn by repetition. This is the four most important issues. The third one is the recall, recollection and recollecting scattered story memory. Recall or remember involve everything we do or say or think. Fear of forgetting will cause a mental block again. This is illustrated by the mind going blank because of fear at the first time you are called upon to speak or give a memory verses. Therefore, the following strategy may help us. 1, learn it well, or practicing recall as you memorize. 2nd, trust the memory. Learn to learn upon it. It is better than you think. 3rd, relax. Ease the tension. Why many times in a state of decay, state of daydream, memory is so much more bright. Therefore, the 3 strategy: learn it, trust the memory, and relax. The 4th most important is the recognition. Meaning, if it is the feeling of one, satisfaction, what you will call it, which recognize the memory as one you want when it comes, such as when walking down the street of a strange town, you pass thousands of unfamiliar faces. Then suddenly you see one you know, how different the attending feeling of recognition, this faculty of memory aid of relearning or all the material once learned. Generally, in general, it is well to remember again that God shall hold us accountable for all we have stored in our never-fading subconscious memory, both of the bad and the good. By the word you shall justified, and by the word you shall be condemned. That is key and the most important one. The other one is psychology of our spiritual life, the psychology of Christian experience, and the psychology of sin and corruption in our nature should be, and issues of spirit, soul, and the body. Man made for God become nature frustrated, being out of step and turn with God and the self, and the key issues. And the other is psychology of redemption or improvement, God cure for sin, wickaging in man. And it is through self-realization, self-integration, self-culture, self-development. This is to bring complete realization of all natural appetite of body and soul, free from all inhibition, how they hate those God-given roadblock without man from sinning with impunity, complex, suppression, and the others. And this is key, and the spirit, personality in believer, the fact and the course, key issues areas. And there are 2 expressions of Paulo which sum up the 2 provisions of God for our complete integration and harmony being with Him. One is the peace with God for our guilty, delivering us from the penalty of sin and the fear of judgment. 2nd, peace of God for our conflict with Him, delivering us from the power and the dominion of sin in member, the law of sin in our member. It is our true sanctification. That is key, most important issue of this part 2. Thank you for your attention again.